Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the ancient mythological squad known as the Ennead. I'm absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because, honestly, we are looking at a story that is essentially ancient Egypt's ultimate cosmic family drama. It literally has the whole shebang: self-creation, intense sibling rivalries, fierce competition for ultimate supremacy, and a pantheon of gods that fundamentally shaped one of the absolute greatest civilizations in human history.
You kind of have to ask yourself, why do modern superheroes and supervillains keep borrowing from a 5,000-year-old Egyptian cult? I mean, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe miniseries Moon Knight to the 2016 blockbuster movie Gods of Egypt, and even tabletop games like Sentinels of the Multiverse, we just keep seeing this specific pantheon pop up over and over in pop culture. It's fascinating, right? So let's unpack exactly why these gods are so incredibly enduring and what ancient hidden agendas they were originally meant to serve. All right, before we meet the actual VIPs of this divine family, let's just ground ourselves with some quick terminology. The word Ennead itself is actually a borrowing. It comes via Latin from the Greek name Inias, which literally just means the nine. This Greek term was a calque, basically a direct word-for-word translation of the original Egyptian word written as psedzet. Now, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs didn't actually record vowels, so the original pronunciation is a bit of a mystery, but Egyptologists generally agree it sounded something like pasajet in Middle Egyptian. So simply put, whenever we say Ennead, we're literally just talking about the nine.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the Heliopolitan creation myth.
So let's dive into this honestly chaotic and highly physiological creation story that was crafted by the priests of the ancient city of Heliopolis. It all starts in the very beginning, and I mean the very beginning, before anything else even existed. According to these priests, the world was literally nothing but the primordial waters of pre-creation, a force personified as Nun. Then, on what they called the first occasion, a mount suddenly arises from these endless waters. Upon this mound sits the god Atum, who miraculously evolves from Nun through sheer self-creation. Now, here's where the Heliopolitan tradition gets incredibly specific, and, well, pretty biological. Atum literally produces the next generation of gods entirely by himself, either by spitting or masturbating, to create the elements of air, personified as Shu, and moisture, personified as Tefnut. These two siblings, Shu and Tefnut, then mate to give birth to the physical boundaries of our world, the earth, personified as Geb, and the nighttime sky, personified as Nut.
Which perfectly segues into section 2, order, chaos, and family. What's absolutely fascinating here is how this resulting family tree basically acts like a giant cosmic scale, perfectly balancing the forces of order and chaos. Across the 4 generations of this divine family, you have this continuous lineage flowing downward, eventually ending with 2 very distinct couples that represent totally opposing cosmic forces. On one hand, you have Osiris and Isis. They are the ultimate symbols of fertility and order, literally the foundational pillars you need for a functioning society. But to balance them out, because the ancient Egyptians were absolutely obsessed with maintaining cosmic equilibrium, you have the second couple, Set and Nephthys, and they represent pure chaos and destruction. It's this incredibly symmetrical family unit of 9 gods that completely maps out both the physical world and the invisible forces that govern it.
All right, let's look at the big picture in section 3, the metamyth, or competing ancient Egyptian cults. Because here's the real kicker. This whole dramatic family story, it wasn't universally accepted right off the bat. Actually, scratch that. It was basically a localized religious marketing campaign. Historically speaking, we see this myth develop and evolve primarily for political reasons. Think back to Dynasty 1, where the unification of Egypt brought all these different localized cults crashing into each other. Every single region or nome had its own local deities, and you better believe their priests insisted their gods were the absolute best. Fast forward to Dynasty V, and the cult of the sun god Ra is totally supreme. But then, under Dynasty 6, Ra's importance mysteriously starts to decline. And this is exactly when Egyptologists think the Heliopolitan priesthood made their genius strategic move. They established the Ennead specifically to elevate their own local creator god, Atum, above everybody else. And they did this by cleverly incorporating already popular gods like Osiris, the beloved god of vegetation and the afterlife, by literally just making him Atum's great-grandson. It was an absolutely brilliant PR spin. They neutralized competing cults by folding them into one dominant family tree, a strategy that thrived all the way into the Ptolemaic period.
But, as you can imagine, these massive claims to preeminence, they definitely weren't respected everywhere. And that sparked a massive ancient rivalry. While Heliopolis was pushing their Ennead, 9 gods led by Atum with that very biological creation story, the contemporaneous city of Hermopolis was promoting the Ogdoad. The Ogdoad was a completely different vibe. It was a totally separate creation story that accounted for the physical creation of the universe using 8 entirely different primordial gods. These gods were paired up as male and female deities representing the fundamental elements of the cosmos. So you had Amun and Amunet for hiddenness and Nun and Naunet for the primordial waters. It was a totally separate competing theological system demanding its own supremacy.
And the rivalry didn't even stop there. Literally just down the road in the city of Memphis, which like Heliopolis was located right in the area of modern-day Cairo, the priests had their own Memphis theology. They were vehemently, enthusiastically insisting that their local creator god Ptah was singularly superior to all 9 gods of the Ennead put together. They claimed Ptah essentially just thought the universe into existence through pure intellect and speech. He totally bypassed the messy physical creation of Atum, establishing an entirely different intellectual paradigm for how the universe kicked off.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Embracing the Contradictions. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, how in the world did the ancient Egyptians deal with all these conflicting creation stories at the exact same time? Did it cause giant religious wars? Were they just endlessly arguing over who hit the nail on the head? Well, the answer is actually incredibly profound. No single story was considered more accurate than another. Instead, the ultimate truth was a mix of them all. They fully embraced duality. To the ancient Egyptian mind, having a bunch of different explanations for the same phenomenon wasn't a glitch, it was a feature. Competing myths weren't seen as mutually exclusive contradictions. They were just different facets of a combined ultimate truth. It's this beautifully unique philosophical concept where multiple realities and localized beliefs are layered right on top of each other, creating a much richer, more comprehensive understanding of the universe. And that leaves us with a pretty incredible question to chew on. If a civilization as massive, long-lasting, and successful as ancient Egypt deeply believed that multiple contradictory myths could seamlessly combine to form one single truth, well, how does that change the way we view the absolute truths in our own modern stories today? Are we maybe a little too rigid in our thinking? The Ennead isn't just some 5,000-year-old family drama. It's a literal window into a completely different way of processing reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.